Okay, I'm going to give a hot take on Bitcoin being a terrible store of wealth, and it's probably a hot take that nobody needed because everybody who watches these videos is going to prefer gold to Bitcoin to begin with. But by now, a lot of you probably know that I do like Bitcoin. I like it as a short-term investment, and then in one way or another, I do think it has long-term value. Either way, though, I don't argue for or against it. I see both the pros and the cons, but the one view that I've never agreed with over time is that it's a good inflation hedge. I've seen the digital gold references over and over. I've seen the articles that say it's edging out gold as a classic safe haven or store of wealth. And again, I just don't agree with any of that. Now, just to give you a little bit of background, I have a fair amount of Bitcoin and Ethereum. And earlier this month, I bought about a half of a Bitcoin and 7 or 8 Ethereum. I put about $40,000 into it. And to some people that's going to seem like a little, and other people that's going to seem like a lot. But without that background, I just don't think what I'm going to tell you means much. Because I know a lot of people talking about Bitcoin that have about $1,000 into it, and that's simply not enough skin in the game to really give much perspective. Now, in the 2 or 3 weeks following that most recent purchase, the price of Bitcoin has gone up about 30%. And then in the last 2 days, the price of Bitcoin has gone down about 30%. Now, I'm even watching the price right now as I record this, and the swings are just crazy. It's been up and down 5% throughout the day. And so earlier this morning, when I saw that the prices had dropped to their lowest, I figured it was probably time to get the Bitcoin out of my wallet, back to the exchange, just in case it fell so far that I was actually going to lose money from my purchase earlier this month. And from the time that I requested the transfer to the time that it actually showed up on the exchange, about 5.5 hours had passed. And that's not at all common to what I've seen in the past, but I imagine a lot of people were doing the same thing I was doing, transferring their assets to the exchange, just in case the bottom really did fall out. So I'm not worried about riding Bitcoin down to zero. There are support levels at 50,000, at 48,000, and you could see as it was dropping, it would challenge those support levels and bounce around and give you some time. But 5.5 hours is a long time to wait if you feel like the value of your asset is just dropping in free fall. Now, if you compare that volatility to what gold's done in that same period of time, the last 3 weeks or so, gold's moved about 5%. It's moved up. It really doesn't matter. Bitcoin is moving 5% every hour right now. So it's certainly not something that you would call a safe haven asset. And if I didn't already have cash savings and retirement investments, a few other things, including a fair amount of gold, I wouldn't be very comfortable dabbling in Bitcoin at all, unless we were talking about that $1,000 or so that I could lose without it affecting me too much. So it surprises me how often Bitcoin is referred to as digital gold. I've thought of them as being somewhat complementary, meaning that because I have safe money in gold, I can have some fun money in Bitcoin, but I really don't see them as being similar at all. Now, I haven't sold my Bitcoin yet, but if I do decide to sell somewhere around the current price and then wait for it to stabilize before coming back in, I will be up on my initial investment. So, before anyone comes in and just says, hey, I could have told you that Bitcoin was going to be a terrible investment, don't worry, I started buying in more heavily when Bitcoin was around $11,000. So anything that I've learned or anything that I'm saying here today, I didn't have to learn through a loss. So the point of this video isn't to try to convince anyone whether or not Bitcoin is a solid investment. It's just to give another reason why I think gold and cryptocurrency are different. One is a store of wealth. I think you can guess which one I feel that is. And the other is maybe a bit too volatile, not only as a store of wealth, but I wonder sometimes how high it can go with these kinds of swings. Now, I'm going to keep this video short, and I will say, though, that I have no idea where Bitcoin is going to be tomorrow. So probably by the time I post this, it will be doing something totally different. But she feels a bit angry today, so I'm keeping an eye on Bitcoin, and you might want to as well. One other point I'll make before I sign off here. It cost me about $240 to transfer the Bitcoin back to the exchange. And if I go to sell it, it's gonna cost another $350. So that's not insignificant. It can potentially cost $600, all things said and done, if I go to sell this. Okay, I think that will do it. This was not meant to be negative or positive on Bitcoin, more just informational. Do your own due diligence before you get into it. I do think that there's a very large upside. I just don't think it's something that you can buy into and then leave alone. So let me know in the comments what you think, and while you're there, if you don't mind hitting the like button, I appreciate it. Always appreciate you watching. I hope you're well, so thank you again. Take care.